Hello, Christina. Very nice to meet you.
Hi. Well, good to see you again.
How are you?
Uh, Busy. We just returned from the front lines. Our team was at Kramatorsk, Sloviansk, Liman, where
Can,
some of
can
the
I, can I interrupt you for a minute? I asked you, how are you?
uh,
Not Ukraine, not
how
Kramatorsk.
is me? How is me? I forget about me, in the whole picture of the scheme of things, I forget about me because, right now me goes to the second side, to the background, so to say. And I live for the mission many times. And I have my 7-year-old son come to me and say, Mom, you seem to like care and help everyone but me. And I'm like, gosh, that feels really bad. So that's when it hits you, that's when it hurts. But I guess as long as we can continue to help people, we're good. I mean, because it became, since long time ago, it became a personal mission. And when you take a failure as your personal failure, a failure to help as your personal failure, that's when it becomes, how are you?
Well, before we continue, I will express what my subscribers often write me, that please take care about yourself. We need you. We need you strong and healthy, and just try not to forget about yourself. Okay.
Thank you. Trying.
So I'm sorry I interrupted you. You were saying that your team just came back from the mission to the front lines, right?
So this was quite a difficult and treacherous, mission because these are right now the fiercest front lines in Ukraine. That's the Donetsk region, basically, near Bakhmut, near Konstantinivka. It's Kramatorsk region. Mind you, we try to do these trips every week with our partners. We cooperate on them with the Ukhrhazbadobanya team, and they have very good logistics in that region and are able to go close to the ground zero. Every trip like that, if you if you count mileage, that's thousands of kilometers because you go from Vorokhta base where we have our storage with food and supply all the way to Kramatorsk. So the trip to the front lines, just to give an idea what people are living through for an average US public and to understand the hardship and the real situation and why we have to continue on helping. So usually it starts for us from Kharkiv. We arrive to Kharkiv with our partners from Ukhrhazbadobanya, and then we're going towards Chuhuiv. And Chuhuiv was one of the towns that was under Russian occupation. So it's a newly liberated area of Kharkiv region. And starting from Chuhuiv, mind you, also Kharkiv is still being bombarded. Just like what 2 days ago, the Russians decided to missile Ukraine again, and we had 3 waves of missiles coming towards Kiev. Our team woke up in Kharkiv at 4 a.m. with missiles hitting Kharkiv. I think there were like 4 missiles that actually hit. So it's being bombarded. It's still at the front line area of Ukraine, right? So it gets the bulk of it. And lots of buildings are still destroyed. Not to compare to Kiev, for example. I'm not even talking about Lviv, but just to give a visual, so to say. Starting from Chuhuiv, which is Kharkiv region, you start hearing artillery fires. So that's when you realize you're ready, kind of crossing into frontline area. You start hearing artillery, which you never hear, for example, in Kiev and other areas. Thanks God. And then from Chuhuiv, we drive towards Izum. That's when you start seeing the greatest destruction, basically devastation. Izum was the place of genocide, one of the places of genocide. Massive graves discovered. The place is completely devastated and destroyed. As you go from Izum towards Liman, what you see is really, you know, breathtaking because the villages are just scorched to zero, just scorched. you know. And Russians have this thing, they like to what they're called сравнять с землей. You know, that they said that they will just level it with the ground. That's their dream, you know. When they come to a place, that's what they try to do. They don't think about, you know, well, we occupy this place, so we need something, some infrastructure to work with, to live from, right? All they can think of is to level a place to the ground. And so you see the whole road of totally destroyed villages where people used to live. They're just like scorched to the ground. And we don't know what happened to the people. I mean, lots of them probably died because these buildings were totally destroyed, totally burned. Whoever survived became IDPs, internally displaced people, or refugees in other countries. And so that's the scenery you see. Now, in Izum and driving towards Izum, you see little hills, and on every hill there is a big Ukrainian flag. And those hills are actually the burial sites where our people died, Ukrainian people died defending Izum, fighting for Izum, and fighting for Kharkiv region that Ukrainian army liberated. And especially the brigade that stood there, it's from Zhytomyr. That was one of the strongest brigades in Ukraine, fighting for the liberation of Izum and Kharkiv region. And so it's kind of, you know, your heart sinks when you see flag, 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 flag along the road. And you realize that each flag are tens of people dead and so on. So it kind of all starts dawning on you, just the sacrifice, the whole, you know, calamity of these things. And then you see these scorched villages going towards Liman. Now, when you come to Liman, now, Liman is used to be one of the big areas of Kramatorsk region, and one of the central cities, let's say, of Kramatorsk region in Donetsk. The city is totally destroyed. I mean, there is a number of 5-floor buildings that every building is destroyed. Every building, 5-floor building is destroyed or damaged. Not destroyed completely, but damaged. All these buildings have no electricity, no gas, no running water, and no heat. Okay? People from these buildings still live downstairs in the basement permanently. They don't even get out of their basements. So if you can imagine a life of, I don't know, I mean, imagine living in the basement, living in the bomb shelter 24/7, not even going to your house to shower or wash. I mean, you were in Kiev in that situation, but at least you knew that you could go home and get changed, you know, something, you know. Well, there's nothing. There's nothing. There's no way for them to do that. So as we pass by these destroyed or damaged buildings with people living in the basements, we see stacks of wood next to the basement so they could get the wood and at least provide some kind of heat in the basement where they're now living permanently. I'm talking, but it's really difficult to describe all this. And I hope that the visuals show, but you know, it's hard to show. So when we're talking about what generation of people is still living there, there's still about 10,000 people living there. Now, Liman was about 20,000 people town, okay? Now there's about 10,000 still living in Liman, in those basements. Most of them are elderly or sick or people with disabilities that have nowhere to go. They don't have a physical ability to leave, or a family that could help them move, or a place they could move to, you know. And at that state, you know, they just refuse to leave. They just say, okay, if we're going to die, we might as well, you know, die here. At least we know this town. And so that's why throughout our mission, we've been making such a big deal about not forgetting about elderly and people with disabilities. Because those people are usually the people left behind. And, you know, we were delivering with our partners aid to people in newly liberated areas of Kherson and Mykolaiv, where people were just like bedridden, and they could not physically get up and go get help or anything or medicine. So we would go door to door, deliver things to them, help them, because nobody else would. Our first attention goes to kids and women, but what about those that are left behind? And that's something that we see constantly in the frontline areas. In Liman, we came to the Defiance Point, that is also an administration building of Liman. So people come there for their administration things, papers, whatever. They come there to get the basics. Once again, they have a generator and they can run electricity, heat up things, charge phones, things like that. And also it's a major point of humanitarian aid distribution. So all the people from Liman come there to get the basics. As we brought food to them and aid, people like elderly women would come up to our team and they would just say, "Do you have some food?" And it's just, it just kind of hits you because you realize that, you wouldn't hear that in Kiev on the street. You wouldn't even hear that in Kharkiv on the street. This is really like takes you back to World War II, totally destroyed, Dresden or Warsaw, where people were basically dying of starvation. They had no food, no aid. Stalingrad, that kind of picture. And you realize that you have arrived, that you are at the front, and you hear artillery nonstop, and you have the faces of these people asking for food, asking for basics. Like, is there anything you can give me? This woman said. We don't take photos of the people. We try to not even like take photos of the faces of the medics because we understand that we are at the front lines, okay, and we jeopardize these people. But whatever images you can show, I'm good with it. And we brought to Liman this time a big supply of dry food, because we realized that considering all the hardship of the situation there, it has to be something that can be prepared really fast. It has to be something that can truly feed these people, like sustainable, something that could sustain them. It has to be a meal that could feed lots of people. And from about third month of war, we began to cooperate with a big American company called Pack Away Hunger. So prior to Ukraine, they've been supplying food all over the world, Africa, Asia, India. And they created basically a simple package that has everything you need for a day supply, plus minerals and all the vitamins. So it can be used by children, elderly, disabled, civilians, you name it. And you can use it while being any religious nomination because it has no meat, it has soy for the protein. But one package could feed 6 people. So for us, that was like, the best thing that we're able to deliver to that area. Because, and basically you just have to heat up water, which you can do over fire, which people do in the basements, and just steam it, just add water to this rice, beans, soy, heavy nutrition and vitamin and mineral meal, and you'll have a full serving, one package for 6 people. So for basements and resistant points, that was like the greatest thing. And people were very happy and actually tastes great. We had to taste one package to see, because, you know, when you're bringing something to the front lines, you know, you don't want to bring something that people don't like to eat or it tastes horrible and say like, well, thank you, but no, you know, I'd rather be hungry than eat this. You know? And so it tastes like pilaf, really. It tastes like a really lovely pilaf that totally fills you up, and you don't need to take any additional vitamins, minerals, or proteins. So it's all there. So people were very responsive and they really loved these things, and it went very well there. So our dream is to raise enough money so we could at least, you know, try to help each of those buildings in Liman that was damaged to have some kind of electricity or ability of heat other than, you know, burning wood, you know, for heating water. So maybe we'll be able to raise funds for that. If that would happen, then that would be a next story to show. And from Liman, we ventured further into Sloviansk. And Sloviansk, basically, it, unlike Liman, it was never under occupation, under Russian occupation. Liman was under Russian occupation. Sloviansk wasn't, but they basically live out of war. They live out of army, and it's a major hub where you see military people coming in, going away for rotation, or getting new supplies and so on. So the whole local population lives off, you know, supplying the military or the soldiers. So we have marketplaces, shops functioning, post office functioning. So it's quite different. It's a different world from Liman. And the next stop is Kramatorsk. And Kramatorsk used to be the major industrial town of Donetsk region. I mean, lots of things were produced there. And as you travel there, you see the Rikone. These are kind of hills made of limestone deposits. And that's a mining town. So we have miners used to live there and work there. But now, you know, the industry just like went to the background. So you don't really see that industrial power that Kramatorsk once held. It was a rich town, really rich town. And first thing you see is when you pass the train station, because Kramatorsk is a major train connection area in the region. So it's very important for that reason. But also that train station was the site of the horrible missile bombing, if you remember, where kids and civilians were killed right there waiting for the train. And remember that image of a blood doll on the floor. That's Kramatorsk. And once again, Kramatorsk is highly concentrated on army, on supplying the military. But we did not see such dire situation neither in Kramatorsk nor in Sloviansk as we saw in Liman. So those areas that are newly liberated areas that were under occupation right now still struggle the most. And mind you, it's only like, what, 30 kilometers to Bakhmut from Liman, where the heaviest battlefield is happening right now, and about maybe 10 or so kilometers to the front line. So what we would call it a gray zone area. Out of what we spoke with, because we were delivering aid to medics at Kramatorsk and Sloviansk, because these are major hubs where the medics from the front lines come to get help. So we delivered food, we delivered generator, we delivered, you know, power station that is being moved there now. So those kind of things. And what we hear out of prognosis, they think that Liman will probably not hold the resistance, and that Russian army will try to push through and go towards closer to Liman. They think that the war will last about 3 years. They do not think that it's gonna and very fast, as we would like to think here in Kyiv. And it was very different to hear their prognosis, their realism, how they take it totally different from us, because we here sit and theorize, this could happen, that could happen, we will win, and so on. And so it's very different to hear their very realistic approach to things. And they said, listen, we do not get aid on time. It takes very long time for all the military or even medical aid to get to the front lines. We are low, the soldiers, for example, they're saying, what we hear from them, they say they're low on ammunition. They call it PK. They're low on things like uniform and warm clothing and things like that. And so it's hard. Their picture is very different and very hard. We understand that when we hear, oh, this new weapons came in, it came in across the border. It needs to go to Kyiv. From Kyiv, it needs to get there. We're talking thousands of kilometers, and it has to be, strategically placed and distributed. People have to be trained to use these weapons, these new machinery. So all that takes time, and that time means human lives. So every month, every week that we are waiting for people to be trained, or for tanks to come in, or anything, or Patriot, people are dying. And basically that costs more and more lives. And they're saying, we're not, romantic about the power of the Russian army. I mean, because just by numbers, they outnumber, and they keep on pushing and pushing and pushing. So the fact that Ukrainian army is holding this wave is already a miracle, so to say, but it costs hundreds of lives daily. And that is something that we really realized when talking to medics and paramedics at the battlefield, at the front lines. We think that perhaps things could change if in the spring we're supposed to get new tanks coming in and new heavy machinery coming in. That could, change the tide if it's strategically placed at the certain direction. And maybe that could make that breakthrough and difference. But once again, to hear them is to see that the other approach to the situation, the very sharp and very realistic and different approach, because they see people die daily waiting for things to come. So to US and to our European partners, I would like to say, do not wait. Do not wait in helping Ukraine. Do not wait in sending more real weapons and machinery, because every day of waiting are hundreds of lives lost, and who knows how many more. And I don't know what will happen if Ukraine will not be able to resist this wave. I mean, these terrorists will not stop on Ukraine. They will move further. And don't feel that because you're in US, it will not touch you. They'll come there, and they'll come to Europe. That's for sure. So if you do not intervene now, then at least do not wait to give needed help that we really saw a dire need for at the front lines right now.
Thank you, Christina, for sharing this. Can I ask you again, this trip that you were talking about to Liman, Kramatorsk, did I get it right? You were there on this trip too, or as you were saying, I didn't really
No,
get it.
I physically wasn't able to be there because I have a 7-year-old that I cannot leave with anyone, and I cannot take him there because that's basically a gray zone area of the front. So I wouldn't be allowed to take Mark with me. But my husband, Roman, who is the crisis coordinator for our mission, has went there, and he sent me all the photos and videos. And as I told you yesterday, when he arrived very late at night, we sat and talked, and he showed me these videos and explained everything. And it became so personal, every little story, that I'm able now to deliver this to you, and also to have the footage so you could see exactly what we're talking about. And that's how our team does it on a weekly basis. They go, and usually it's men, because it's easier if the situation escalates or the shooting starts. They go and they deliberate.
Christina, thank you very much. Thank you so much for what you are doing and your team is doing. Please keep doing what you are doing.
You know what? The Ukrainian television now began to be interested in us, and I said, "Well, I thought we had to die in order for you guys to take an interview with us." Because there's no hero in your own country. You've been working for a year, and finally they're like, "Oh, can we talk to you about your work?" I'm like, "Where were you before?" It's been a year of hard work, and we're still continuing. But well, that's good. I guess it's a positive sign that, with all the scandals and corruption happening, and people getting out of their jobs, and ministers changing like gloves, we're still here, and we're still kicking ass, and we're not giving up, because we're just super honest, and we're just, doing this because we believe in it, and we believe in victory, and believe in helping people, and we're doing this for free for a year now. So for us, it's kind of the whole team. Imagine the whole team of IDPs working at our base for free for a year, and they're united by this madness of making a difference, of helping others, even though they need help too. but who's going to help the helper? It's like you're asking me, how are you? As long as we can continue. So for us, it became a personal mission, and we take it, if we cannot continue, we take it as a personal failure. At least I do. For example, for me, it's hard to separate myself from the mission now, because when you see all that, when you hear stories, and when you know people. Oh, I forgot to say that we also did a big evacuation of a person during this period, since we began working with you, a heavily wounded person from the front lines. And he's now recovering in Lviv in a special hospital for treatment and therapy. So that's another success story. The person had 2 strokes at the age of 40, and damaged lungs, damaged ribs, damaged foot, damaged hand from the blast. So, when you see, stories like that, and that you were able to have that, that's a big plus to your karma. I feel that way. That's how I see it. We will continue on helping as much as we can, as long as you guys continue to support us.